And we're back with the rise of the green tide as the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade has finally made its debut. Orks reaching a 48% win rate. What will come with the rise of the Orks and the Greenskins? Will we make our splash in the meta? But first, let's start off with today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice. So thank you to Baron of Dice for allowing us to do our paint competition. So of course, check out Baron of Dice because they have nobody likes taxes, so check out the description. So thank you very much to the Baron of Dice. Now, like always, we start with the stats and the facts. But here you can see our winners Meta Mondays do not have the Waaaghtaktiks percentage and win percentage. But if you go look at their listings, they do write tactics in and put abbreviations. There are also no notes for this either, as in like he didn't give any commentary. So we're just gonna look at the numbers real quick. Here you can see we have one Warhorde player going 4-1. We're gonna cover one of the Warhorde lists that did well this weekend. And then 53% win rate for Warhorde, 40 for bullies and the hunts. Pretty cool to see with the hunts though. Not really that many players. Most people are sticking to Warhorde. It really seems like the discrepancy here of what orc players are kind of leaning into is going more into Warhorde than anything, and probably the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade, right? If I had to guess, what are the two most just strictly, popular detachments? I mean, it's definitely going to be Warhorde, but also the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade, which is quite interesting. I mean, people really like the fact that it's a combined arms and it allows you to play both phases of the game. It's actually the right amount of cunning and brutal. And then Warhorde is just straight brutal at all times and does do what orcs love to do. So today we do have two awesome Waaaghtaktiks Brigade lists that did go 4-1, and I actually do have notes from both of the individuals. So we'll be able to get into quite a bit of details through their games and maybe some of their mindset, and then we'll end with a Warhorde list that we did well this weekend. So let's start off with our channel moderator actually in the Discord and a channel member. We have Brandon Van Den. We also did a video together when the channel first started, and it's pretty hilarious. So here he is, my boy, always just coming out of nowhere and smashing at the meta. So he was at the Hammer in the new year 2025. So right over here, and here we have, it was a, I believe, 48% event, right? 48% event in America. So we actually do have notes from Brandon. He did end up in 7th place, losing in the 4th round. But let's take a look at his list real quick, like always, before we go over all his notes. So it is the Taktikal Brigade. Looking at his characters, he has a Beast Boss with Squad Leader, Big Mech with Shock Attack Gun with the enhancement of Mech Captain, Boss Snickrot, Ghaz Thraka, War Boss, and then a Weird Boy with enhancement Mork's Cunning. And then we have Zagrot Waaaghtaktiks to round off the characters. That's a pretty thick character point investment, but I'm here for it. In the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade, I'm going to say that a lot. Sorry, guys. But in the Taktikal Brigade, it's very common that we have a lot of character investment. One thing I want to point out here is you do not see a basic mech, but you do see Boss Snickrot. And Boss Snickrot cannot give two orders right on the same turn. So even if you do redeploy him, he cannot do it again. But the fact that he can redeploy and he infiltrates means he can kind of make up this distance that you kind of want from the mech with the big gob yelling, essentially, or boomer gob, pretty much the yelling guy, right? And then I do really like Ghaz Thrakan's detachment. He was initially overlooked, but all in all, we should learn by now, especially if you're watching this channel, that Ghaz is always find his place in our list. He just does something that no other orc unit can do, and he really makes sure that our our go turn ends up getting in our favor, because we really can't afford it not to go in our favor. It's a one turn kind of thing. So he really gives us that big swing, and then his damage 4 matters a lot. But really, it's all about Makari, right? He has one big bodyguard. Another thing here is he has Squad Leader, right? Squad Leader on a Beast Boss. He is definitely one of the if there's two of my favorite options, is the Beast Boss, or it's the War Boss Mega Armor, and then maybe the Trike. I think the Trike's too gigantic necessarily to ever hide, but the War Boss and Mega Armor can be appealing as well if you are into this enhancement. I personally don't love it, but we're going to talk about that as we go over these his matchups and how they're working out for him. And the last thing that I really appreciate is Zagrot Waaaghtaktiks. Zagrot Waaaghtaktiks is something that we love since Dreadmob. I think here he's found another home, and he's definitely kind of along the lines of an auto take in Dreadmob, But in Taktikal Brigade, the fact that you can give him stealth to keep stacking on these abilities is pretty awesome. You do need someone to give him orders, as he is not a war boss. Keep that in mind. But Zaghrot's awesome if you know how to manipulate the movement phase in large mobs of boys, which Brandon does. And speaking of large mobs of boys, he has one on this list as well. That is what the war boss and the weird boy is with Mork's Cunning. And me and him were speaking about this before the event, because we speak, obviously he's on them. He's a moderator, and he's been around the channel since the beginning. It's funny because as much as we get along and we agree on some like really key units and strategies, he was like, I'm bringing this weird boy. I'm going to be sniping characters. And I'm like, no, you're not, bro. But it didn't really matter in the end, because the fact that he could, move units around the battlefield was really the big beneficiary factor here in having a big 20-man unit of boys to swing OC and score late game. And it just really made a big difference in all his notes and such. So, speaking of other battle line units, he had 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. He had a battle wagon, and then he had Ard Case and the Zap Gun, followed by a 22 model unit of Gretchen, obviously, 2 10-man units of Gretchen, plus their run herders, 2 10-man bricks of Flash Skits. Keep in mind that they're awesome. One thing that I wanted to say here is that he does have the Big Mac with shock attack gun instead of Big Mac with mega armor, right? Which is one of the other things here people are going back and forth on. So it's really cool that he ended up bringing that. And then, of course, just, flash kits are great. Just give them a nice order. Take 2 orders. They feel so awesome. Giving them stealth, giving them +1 strength, giving them +1 to hit the shoot. You choose, when you're doing those, but it really makes a difference. And they were already awesome. But in this case, 10-man units even become very viable. He has 2 10-man units of commandos. Goodness, when I speak about, commandos lead the way, Brandon was like, where do you, boss? And he was out there with Zog, Mandos. He's infiltrating Beast Boss. So he took that consistently, and literally he's been all about that since early in the edition. So I appreciate that. And then 2 Mega Knobs, and he brings 1 Kill Saw and 1 Power Claw in each hand. That gives the versatility, right? You don't get the twin link from having 2 saws, and you don't get the shooter, which kind of usually pretty much never matters at all. So the fact that you get to have 1 of each means that depending on your target that you're going into, you can choose your favorite profile, right? If they have a 4-up invuln, and you're already wounding them on 2s with the power claw, then you might as well get the other attack in. If you need the AP, then choose your claw. So I like that. It's always overlooked. So really cool on that. And Brandon has extensive notes that we're going to go over today. And I'm going to show his opponents, and then he actually has a document that is 47 slides. We're not going to go through all that. I will don't worry, I'll keep it concise as I can, but it's nice that he was very thorough as always. So let's take a look at his first game, and then we'll look at his notes and some pictures that are alongside his notes. So pretty cool on that. This guy has a whole biography before. That was kind of weird. So it's Blood Angels, Liberate an Assault Group. Like I always say, Blood Angels are around, but it seems like they're getting kind of too elite and still keeping like the same problem of being kind of jet soft, that they're not favored as much in the meta, but you have to be ready for them. And Brandon was. So we have Commander Dante Lemartis, Librarian Terminator armor with speed of the Primarch, a Lieutenant in Phobos armor, and then a Lieutenant with combi weapon. We have an Assault Intercessor squad with jump pack, 2 of those actually, just 5-man units. A Blade Guard veteran brick because it's a 6-man unit, Death Company Marines with jump packs, a Gladiator Lancer, Infiltrators, 1 unit of Sanguinary Guard, a Scout Squad, and then Terminators. So I'll show you his list real quick, and then I'll pop out his notes so I can give you a nice. And also, shout out to Brandon in the chat. Game 1 was Take and Hold with raised banners, swift action. So he reserved his flash kits with the shock attack gun. He put boys in the battle wagon. And then he was saying he would redeploy the commandos, both of them, and then the battle wagon, or he would deploy Zaghrot, depending on what his opponent was. And then he has, and then it was the Blood Angels. So for this list, I'll actually pull out the document so you guys can actually see it real quick. Brandon wanted to show off to you gets. So you guys can see. Let me get this up here. Boom. Let me zoom in so you guys can at least see some of the pictures, right? Oop. Wrong one's there. Thanks. All right. Bam. All right. So there we go. He pulled out a couple pictures of him and his Blood Angels game. And as for his notes, he said, in this game, he used commandos to bring out the Death Company, and he used Zaghrot as bait. And pretty much he just lined up on the walls, Blood Angels don't really have good options for what we would call skirmishing, getting kind of these little trades off early for points. They kind of just come in and smash into you. So along that time, once he kind of used his commandos and his Zog unit essentially infiltrating and scouting as his bait, then he counterpunch with Ghaz. The flash gets were pretty much decimating units. But then we have and then the boys pretty much charged the Death Company. Ultimately, he just ran out of momentum, and then they pretty much talked it out because he was almost tabled and had no point units left on the table and low on points. So Brandon kind of just ran him over. They're a little too elite, and Taktikal Brigade is very efficient at its combined arm assets, guys. You can't overlook the fact that you can overwatch with these brick of flash kits and a shock attack gun. So as soon as you take the middle board presence, and if he already has these commandos out and Zagra units out, so you can't even reach that, it means the enemy knows as soon as I move, I'm getting overwatch, even the position and stage to hit any of his like actually valuable units. So I can end up seeing this being a common occurrence in some of these matchups where the enemies kind of have to invest in all this early board presence. And if they're too aggressive, then you have something like a beast boss to hit it. So I wouldn't say I'm still sold on squad leader, but I definitely see a little how he was utilizing that value because he fully invested in that strategy. It wasn't like he tiptoed into that, right? He didn't put just one Mando unit. So you can start seeing the return on when you're sticking to an idea that you're trying to bring or an archetype, fully invest in it. And you can see Brandon really thought this out. So great job with that. I can see the Weird Boys being valuable in this case. Big up all that distance too. So let's see. Then he goes on to his second game. So game 2. We have the Ritual, and then we have Swift Action, Flash Kits and Shock Attack Gun in reserve. He has a Storm Boy unit, and then he put 20 boys in the wagon, and then he considered redeploying the Mandos and the Battle Wagon. His opponent was the Tyranids. So I'll pull up the Tyranids list real quick. Let me get rid of some of these tabs. Too excited, I had too many open. All right. So then we go to the Tyranids. So he said, bugs for brains. Boop, get a little closer, you guys can see. So we have Death Leaper, Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, 2 units of Gargoyles. Keep in mind, really good move blocking type of units, right? They'll walk up to you, or actually advance up to you, shoot, and then they get to move, normal move after that. They can be a problem for Orks, especially if you don't have that presence. So I can see Brandon trying to take advantage of his Mandos here. We have Biovores, Exocrines, 3 of them, 3 Exocrines, all in, of course. That's an efficient Tyranid army, right? If you're playing just one Exocrine guy and one, it's 3's what you're expecting to see if you're playing at GTs. 2 Lictors, only 1 Malice Scepter, only 1. That's nice. Unit Neurogons, a Neurolictor, Pyrovores, a Ravener unit, a Tyrannofax with a Rupture Cannon, and then a big unit of Zoanthropes. Love to see that. So Tyranid is trying to also take advantage of the mid-table, but he doesn't have anything that's necessarily challenging for commandos as well, I guess they can fight first and they can hurt most of the commando unit, but it comes for like OC, and if they get the initiative on something like a Lictor, they can definitely pick that boy up. And they're fighting for the infiltration deployment. So I really love that you actually have to play that part of the game if you tech into having commandos and scouts like that. It really, to me, just makes it more immersive that you really care about the game, the roll off to deploy and such. So right. So we have another picture by Brandon and his opponent with his Tyranid army. Boom boom. Exocrines, Hive Tyrant, Brain Bugs. You can see he didn't really go that far with his commandos, and you don't really have to, guys. Just because they can infiltrate all the way up the field doesn't mean they will all the time. So this is just good enough here, and you can see he's kind of just trying to block off his flash kits and get in the initiative. So very cool pictures by that, and then one more picture from how that looks. So he said this was a heck of a game. He said lost most of Zagrat units to Overwatch. He forgot how efficient those zoanthropes are. He ended up using gargoyles to jail his battle wagon for 2 turns. Like I said, they can just move after they shoot. So you have to be aware of that. It's heroic interventions can kind of help if they charge it and touch it, but a lot of times they won't even have to just move right up to it because they have so much mobility. So then you have, that's where like maybe flash kits can pick them up, but then it's like, is it worth that one? And my flash is kind of exposed now. So hey, he said his units picked up, his flash kits picked up the ones without the character, we're picking up Lictors, Raveners, and Neurogons. That's the point, right? They don't really need the character investment. They're sitting at 160 points. Once they get 1 or 2 orders, they're really effective at picking up anything that's lower than them and then going toe-to-toe with anything that's near them in points. And it feels nice when they punch up, when they pop lethals, or if you get them a certain strength threshold and they chip someone down near Ghaz's aura, which can happen also because we have, Ghaz on the list. He said Ghaz bullied the middle. He was slapping the big bugs that were -1 to hit. So then it ended up, because it was the ritual, he knew he had to, take a wall on turn 3 and kill everything that was in his way. And pretty much the boys took advantage of the bottom objectives and eventually stole away his primary to kind of offset the game and really make the difference because it was such a slow game. I mean, not slow game, close game. Excuse me. So great work by there, because the ritual can be quite annoying against Tyranids, as they can kind of castle up and just make stuff on their side of the field and then use gargoyles to hold you back on that side of the field. That's exactly what I've experienced in them. So the fact that you were able to get around that and still punch through was really good on you. And I don't think I can exactly phrase how much I appreciate that firsthand, right? having to deal with something like that. So good job there. Luckily, you didn't have a bunch of Maliceptors and stuff, so you punched your way right through, recognizing that, and I love that. So shout out to Ghaz in that matchup. So then we go to game 3, and I'll show you that real quick. Boom. Right here. He said Scorched Earth, swift action. Nothing in reserve. Boys and wagons, and then commandos and battle wagons. His opponent was a Death Guard. So I'll look at to see some of these pictures. So I make sure I don't pull up all of the slides, my boys, right? Because 47 up in here, but a lot of good pictures. Let's see. So right here, we know about Death Guard right around here, guys. We talk about that they can be problematic for Orks, but we'll take a look at his list before we get to the notes. But here's like one of the pictures of how that would look. So let's move on to Mr. Stephen Harvey. And this is the Death Guard player. So he played the Plague Company, old-fashioned Death Guard. So he has Mortarion, Typhus, Biologist Putrefier, 2 Death Guard sorcerers in Terminator armor. So we do got damage reduction here. Got to be aware of that. Foul Blightspawn, 2 Malignant Plague Casters. Yeah, I said it weird. Who cares? Tallyman, we could use CP. You have Brigaturm Plague Marines, 2 Death Guard cultist bricks of 10 dudes. So that's pretty cool. 2 6-man unit of Death Shroud Terminators, followed by a 20-man unit of Poxwalkers, 2 floater bloat drones, 2 rhinos, and then 1 3-man Nurgling squad. So that guy was about that life. Really, really heavy on the character investment, but you should expect that when you're seeing Death Guard. Morty is still quite effective for his points. I mean, goodness, Morty 300 points, guys, right? Ghaz is really paying a good price for that infantry keyword in Makari. So, and then Typhus is quite effective, can put mortal wounds. He leads the Poxwalkers. And then remember, these Death Shroud Terminators, sorcerers can reduce damage on one phase. So be aware of that, and then you have the Fight First. And then lethal critical 5+ from the big 10-man unit of Plague Marines. So let me take a look at his notes. Where did I move those? Did I move those? I think I moved them. Yeah, I did. All right, cool. And then, so Brandon's already having a pretty good matchup of armies that we talk about and that we kind of anticipate you're going to see at events. Death Guard, Tyranids. We'll see more of what he had to deal with. The meta is quite open, so I think Orks are in a great spot to really take on anybody, but you got to do your research. So he said, holy smokes, this was a game. Low scoring because they pretty much were running out of time by around 4. And Brandon felt like he was really starting to swing it there, but it does happen, right, guys? At least these close games, not also in time really matters. So he said that he put everything, both Git squads on the table because the guy had lack of shooting. He said he did an interesting move by turn 1, trying to burn in the middle with the bloated drone. And he responded with, Brandon trying to erase it. And then Death Shrouds, Morty came out. And then the Rhinos came out with the Plague Marines. So he ran around with Ghaz still staged in the middle, and then the flash kits were ready to shoot at it. Zog went so he went and used Zod and Commandos to interact with Typhus and a Brick of Death Shroud. So that's quite interesting there. Typically, you would think that they might have enough volume, but when you really considered, you know, the 5-up invuln, when you do call the wall and the -1 to wound, as long as they're away from Morty and he's not really there to ignore the modifiers, it can matter. So he said the No Man's Land top objective was pretty much taken over by the flash kits. And he used the battle wagon to pretty much score primary and just hold OC. Yeah, and he he was proud. He wrote a whole bunch here. Pretty much that there's a lot of he ended up using a lot of his non-leader character units to consistently fight for the No Man's Land objectives on the pretty much north and south side of the deployment zone. And pretty much eventually he did lose most of his like middle of the table. Let me see, I have a picture here what he's talking about, where you can see right here he has the 10-man unit to the north, and then he used cards I like that for his orders. He has this red 10-man unit right here to the north, as you can see on this picture, that's holding that for most of the game. And then, like I said, he has his battle wagon staging that's going to come out and take the middle as well. And all of this responds to come and kill Ghaz, which is typically the case, right? You should never expect Ghaz to survive. Here you can see this war boss and the boys moving up as well in the middle. So a consistent pattern. Ghaz stage in the middle, boys there to help him with battle wagon support. Characters that are unled play others, you know, the flanks alongside the commandos, and then Zagroth supports them as well. So pretty cool to see on that. So it was really close game. It just ended up going in Brandon's favor, but Brandon was hoping for a bigger point swing there because you know, he felt like he finally had gained momentum. But, you know, it was too late in the game because you can see he ended up getting a 55-point game here, but he did win it. So shout out to you for winning, Brandon. I can get those interactions, right? Yeah, I bet you there's a lot of auras and things you're really trying to make sure of, and combat to have to interact with and deal with. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, so close to putting 30 flash kits, like the chat says. I know, right? But 20, man. We're at 20, guys. Who's going to take the full 30? Stay tuned. So shout out to Brandon for winning that one. And then we move on to game 4. So for game 4, here's the mission. We can see search and destroy, my boys. He has Burden of Trust, prepared positions. So we have, which is go to ground for free and heroic intervention. That is dope. That is really cool for Zagrant Wartsnaga when he's in Dread Mob, but in this case, he's not in Dread Mob. But it is cool for the flash kits, I guess, right? Not flash kits, sorry. Storm Boys. So we have in his reserve, he has the flash kits and the shock attack gun. He has the boys in the wagon, and then commandos, Zagra, and versus Necrons. Oh, he said that he didn't actually get pictures of this game. Oh, something that I forgot to mention. Brandon didn't even mention throw it out in chat. Brandon was streaming this event in our Discord, so you can actually go back and watch these games. He said sadly the camera guy didn't get photos in this game, and his stream kind of got cut out. So he said the Necron's Shadow Scar list was pretty rough and ended up kicking him in the butt, and ended up winning up the whole tournament. It pretty much was wounding everything on 2s, and it was bullying kind of the primary in the middle with the Doomsday Arcs and the Silent Crit King. He did push aggressively, and he thought maybe he should have played KG because it was Burden of Trust came scoring easy for him. So he just parked his big boys on the objectives. His only highlight was that killing all 3 Doomsday Arcs. And never getting overwatched by the Galactopus. So you do have to be weary of the Necrons, but I'll show you the list real quick. I know everybody's kind of like, dang, Necrons, of course. So yeah, you expect to see that right now in the meta. Scatterstar is feeling itself. So the guy wrote a bio also. That's kind of weird. So you can see he has a Hexmark Destroyer, another Hexmark Destroyer, but each one has a different enhancement. One's Demanding Leader, and the other one's Chrono Independence Field. He has a Silent King. Kind of light on characters from my experience with Scatterstar. So it means he has more stuff, which actually might be more rough. We have Canoptic Reanimator, Canoptic Spiders. I do. You should expect to see both of these in these lists. I think this Canoptic Spider gives a feel no pain to mortals, or just a feel no pain in general. I'm not sure. And then the reanimators for like the infantry and such. 3 Doomsday Arcs, really efficient for their points. -4 AP. They are terrifying to something like Squig Hog Boys or even Orc Trucks. They really actually do pop quite effectively. Nonetheless, you should expect to see them everywhere. The 4-up Invol's annoying, but hey, we got tank busters now. Flayed ones, so they can infiltrate. 2 units of Locust Destroyers for scoring. A unit of Heavy Locust Destroyers. A Score Pack Destroyer unit. 2 of them, actually. Some Tomb Blades, and then a Triax Stalker. This helps you actually ignores cover when you picks a unit. So he actually has more stuff than sometimes you end up seeing on this, right? So, oops, pulled that up. So I'll pull up his notes and his list real quick. Not his list, sorry. Some notes and some pictures. Oh no, he didn't have any picture. I forgot. Yeah, we just went over that. He was like, I don't have pictures. Sorry, guys. So then we move on to his game 5. Let's see. Bam. Oh, I can show you for Mr. Sully. What you were talking about is where people can see that. It's on Meta Monday. So you just Google Meta Monday and then pull up like their most recent ones and go to the bottom and you'll see all their the overall win percentages and stuff. Shout out to you. Question. So here we have game 5. So it's taken hold. Good old fashioned taken hold. Hidden supplies. Middle objective into turn 2. Let's see. So reserve none, battle wagon, 20 boys, redeploys, and he was versus World Eaters. So let me pull up this World Eaters list. World Eaters did get kind of a glow up with their new detachment. And this is the new detachment because it has the Vessels of Wrath. So now in this detachment, from what I understand, instead of having to roll off randomly for the abilities, they get to pick 3 units and then give them the abilities that they get. So they can choose Fight on Death, they can choose Advance and Charge, and then they can choose like Feel No Pains, for example. I think, yeah. But Angron cannot. I think you still have to roll for Angron. So you still see Angron just because having the ability to just kill just about anything in the game feels really good. So you have Angron, Lord Invocatus, and then 2 Demon Princes with wings. That is quite common. Just because the fact that now they can just run up and beat the crap out of stuff at will with the abilities, I guess really makes them better. I think there might be something else in there that I'm missing. If so, I'll add it in the notes later. But he has 3 of these Demon Princes with wings. So I expect normally 1 or 2, but dang, 3, he went all in. Unit of Jackals, 2 units of Exalted 8-bound, 1 unit of Chaos Spawn. Goodness, I do like that he brought a big fat unit of Exalted 8-bound right alongside Angron, because it's like, which one are you going to kill? One's being led by the Juggernog, and then Angron is just going crazy. And then the small unit means you can kind of missile in with these little 3-man units really quick. World Eater spawns. Of course, they get the Feel No Pain is really annoying. He has 2 Destructors with the auto cannon. So this is quite elite, quite an elite list, in my opinion, for the World Eaters. So let's take a look at Brandon's list or notes right here, and maybe a picture. Here's a picture. Here's the Angron. Good looking Angron for the most part. There we go. A nice base, color green. Boom, look at that Angron lining up on the boys. I know you guys appreciate that. The flashiest gets getting chewed up by some 8-bound, and then some more flash gets up over here getting stuck in. So love to see that. So now we take a look at the notes. So yeah, a lot of scrolling. So good game against the World Eaters. He said that he pretty much deployed on the line knowing that the World Eater guys kind of want to deploy on the line too, and then he redeployed and set up screens. Really nice for that. The guy ended up not making all of his charges anyways somehow with World Eaters. Pretty crazy in that case. He did manage to pop a battle wagon. I'm surprised that after he popped the battle wagon, he didn't like consolidate. Maybe, I don't know if it was Angron or not, but usually Angron might have an issue of, if it's a big unit, once he pops something, he can consolidate into it, and he's not necessarily scared of unit of boys. But in this detachment, you can fall back and charge the boys. So that's pretty cool. That's something I always, think about, that, hey, when can Orks fall back? That's one of the few cases. So he ended up wine turn 1 because he knew that's going to be investment, that investment of World Eaters just running straight into you. That's the cool part about us being able to declare it on our terms, essentially, is that we can kind of anticipate the enemy doing their abilities, but we don't have to fully invest, and then they go, I'm just on a wait, actually, since you called that. So it's pretty cool here that he was able to pick up the Demon Prince and most of the Exalted 8 bounds. And he put the other Demon Prince down to 4 wounds, destroyed a Predator, and took most of the objectives. He was stuck trying to just dig them out because now you have the invuln, and then they lost enough of those units. As you can see, he had a pretty elite army. And even Angron can kind of fail to clean boys effectively once you have a 5-up invuln. So pretty dope on that. He ended up killing Angron turn 2. And he tried to charge the shock attack gun / flash kit squad, and with some 8-bound, I believe they got murked in Overwatch. He did a secret mission. The enemy did a secret mission, and got lucky by making Angron back, and ended up stealing his home objective to get the secret mission. Nonetheless, Brandon still ended up winning that one with a 93-point win right here. So shout out to our boy Brandon. And that was the end of his 5-round event of going 4-1. So let's take a look at this list one more time. We have the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade with a Beast Boss with Squad Leader, Big Mac with Shock Attack Gun, Ghaz War Boss, Weird Boy, Zagrog, a 20-man unit of boys, 2 5-man units of Storm Boys, which of course battle line. Remember, those boys can do, Storm Boys can do secret missions for you gets, right? So never forget that. Then we have a battle wagon, a 22 brick of Gretchen plus their run herders, 2 minimum size units of Grots, 2 10-man bricks of flashy gits, followed by 2 10-man units of commandos. Keep in mind they kept their breaching ram and their power claw and the rocket. You ring the rocket because you're not going to give up damage 3, just for no reason. So yeah. And then we have the Meganobs, just 2 of them with their variety of weapons. So shout out to Brandon and his Tactic Brigade. Whoa! So that's just one iteration of what the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade can do. So now we move on to the second performing Ork player, which we also have notes for. Not as in depth with a million pictures because not everybody's as consistently thorough and so in detailed as Brandon, nor do you have to be. I appreciate these notes nonetheless. And Stephen Pamperine and I has also done a video together on Ork Boy Mobs. So if you haven't checked that out video, check him out. And he's known for coaching as well. So let's take a look at Stephen Pamperine and his list at the Everwinter Assault ITC Major. Yes, this is a major. So my boy was jumping off the deep end of the pool today. So let me get rid of some more of these tabs because I think I had a million of them open right here. Yeah. Let's see. Shout out to the chat. Oops, I just erased that. So shout out to the chat anyways. Anybody's out there. I'm just, we are live in the chat. So if you're in there, let me get a whoa and ask any questions that you guys have right here. Because I actually just took down his events. That's hilarious. So we have people in chat. I wonder if 60 grots are too many. Maybe for anything other than Dread Mob, yes. So sorry guys, let me pull this up. I fat fingered and erased too much. But yeah, shout out. What I want to also say is there is a difference. And no, it doesn't mean that it's not appreciated or that you aren't awesome anyways for doing very well, but doing well at a major is a significant feat. And I know that our Git here doesn't necessarily run to every single event all over the place and travel the nation. So great job by coming out and performing at this major, Steven. So let's see. And his list, I can just show you his list anyway, since we're here. We talk about his list while I pull this up. His list has some unique tech pieces, but stuff that has been hinted on here before and that I've said that people should consider looking into. And, it would not surprise me that Steven would end up doing something like this, as he was doing this since Index Hammer when we first started touching base, which is using 20-man units of Ork Boy mobs, which is exactly what he ended up using here. But in this case, it was Snaggas, actually. So let's take a look at his list. We have a Beast Boss as his Warlord with the enhancement Mork's Cunning. Then he has another Beast Boss on foot, followed by a Big Mech in Mega Armor with the custom Force Field, custom Mega Blasta, and Power Claw. Followed by the Big Mech, obviously enhancement that allows you to re-roll the hit roll. 2 Big Mechs with shock attack guns, and then a basic War Boss on foot. Followed by 2 20-man units of Beast Snagga boys. Whoa! I think that's awesome. So this was something that I typically suggested for like anti-Katans. When there was multiple Katans running around the meta and such, you could just pick up a Katan when you're near Ghaz and 1 activation. But you can see on this list, he doesn't have Ghaz. In this detachment, you can simply use 1 CP to pop lethal. That's freaking awesome. I've done it for 10-man units. Haven't been doing it for 20-man units. So shout out to Steven. He has a 10-man unit of Storm Boys, which he very much says, I'll tell you, I'll spoil that right now. He said it's awesome. It's worth it. Then a 5-man unit of boys, followed by that 10-man brick of Flash Kits, 2 minimum size unit of Grots, a 10-man brick of Knobs with Power Claws. And then we have 2 units of Tankbustas. He does have the Pulsar Rocket as the war gear option, and then the Knobs in both the units did have their smash hammers. He did not get a chance to smash anything with his hammers, sadly enough. And then he has a Battle Wagon with Ard Case and a cannon, followed by 1 basic truck. So shout out to Mr. Steven Pambreen. And I do have his notes, and I did find it and pull it back up while we were yapping while I was messing up. So thanks for bearing with me. So here we are. He went 4-1, and he ended up getting 11th place. So let's take a look at his first opponent, and then I'll take a look at his notes as well. So right away, went into Tyranids. See another pattern here, guys. You should expect to see Tyranids, Necrons, some form or 2 of Space Marines, and then probably like a Death Guard or Demons, right? As in like that Chaos variant you're going to end up running into. And I guess now you're going to end up seeing more Astro Militarum, right? And if you think I'm missing anything else, let me know in chat. So again, we have a Hive Tyrant, a Neural Tyrant, a unit of Gargoyles, a unit of Hormigaunt, Biovores, 5 Gene Stealers, 2 Lictors, a Neural Lictor, 2 units of Pyrovores, a unit of Raveners, 2 Exocrines, 2 Maliceptors, and then 2 Tyrannofex, both with Rupture Cannons to bring fear to any battle wagons. What I will say here is that the Neural Lictor plus the Shadow of the Warp ability is quite annoying for the Orks. It's not backbreaking usually, but you can accidentally have those games where you just like fail every battle shock on your go turn, and then that kind of sucks, right? So I'll pull up his notes real quick while you look at his list. So round 1, when he played against the Tyranid monster match, he had to take a 20-point penalty. That's why he ended up getting 75 points, because he was late to submit his list. So he had already practiced this out in expecting to see Tyranids, and it went about as much as he expected. The Tyranids didn't have enough killing power, and as long as you don't let the multiple the multiple Exocrines and Tyrannofexes all shoot at you, or something like the brain bugs all at once, like focus fire you, then they don't really kill enough, not even of your flash kits with the Big Mech and Mega Armor, because that 4-up invuln really, really matters, guys. If you're talking about what my preference is, I think the Big Mech and Mega Armor, that extra price you pay for the 4-up invuln and reviving units, and also bringing a little bit of combat proficiency there, is definitely worth it. I greatly advise it, and in this case, Steven used it to kind of get the game kick-started. So that being said, he would just bring some guys back in when he got shot, and then the Snaggas did work as usual. So he said that guy did end up taking his home objective, so he thinks he could have played better, but nonetheless, he felt like he had the tools to just take out Tyranids, and he proved that he could. So shout out to you, and then we move on. So let's see his second. Let's see his second matchup. Like I said, he got a 75, but he had 20-point loss, like from penalty. So then you go into his game 2. So game 2 is against Adeptus Mechanicus. So a lot of the times you can just end up having a hard time with Adeptus Mechanicus because you don't ever see it and you kind of becoming unfamiliar with its rules. So we have a Halo's Creed Battle Clade. Not really sure personally what that does. So we have one Skatar and Marshall. Very, very surprised to see only 1 character. They're so dang cheap and they actually matter for the army. That really caught me off guard. So we have a Skitarii Ranger unit, 2 of them, and then 2 through 3 units of Vanguards, followed by a Scorpius Doom Crawler, Doom Rider, excuse me. Iron Strider Ballistari's, and then 2 Onager Doom Crawlers, followed by 2 Sky Stalkers, an Infiltrator Squad, 2 units of Rust Stalkers, 3 units of Disintegrators. These Disintegrators are the most effective gun platforms that they actually have. And then Stalkers are like 2 wound fast infantry that are kind of for skirmishing, like strength 5 and like -1 AP, I think. And then Stalkers have like the reactive move, I think, or uppy downy. And then so I would say that how he describes this game is not surprising. So in his notes, he said pretty much that on his go turn when he went out and after he had called the wall, his entire arm, the Admech player, did all the damage he could do. And between his invuln and Steven just giving stealth out to everything, knowing that Admech mostly just hit on 4s, meant that he really couldn't do anything. There was no damage really given to the Orks. He said he lost about a dozen boys with all the Admech's activation. So of course some bad dice rolls, but keep in mind Admech's hitting on 4s and giving them stealth, put them on their back foot. And Admech is kind of not in the spot, in my opinion, when you put a lot of pressure on them to kind of throw you off them as an Ork player, and you can kind of just pick them up really effectively, especially when you have 20-man units of Snaggas and call the wall and they give strength 6, and you give them strength 7, and you just beat stuff up. You have the Devil to pick up the little vehicles. They don't have enough like screening. So he ran them over, 100-point win there. Shout out to Mr. Steven Pampering. So we got round 3. And here's where it gets hot and spicy, because this is where he takes his first loss and only loss, where he goes into the Necrons again. We were talking about the Necrons today. Don't be surprised that we see them again. So we have this. What is this? Is this Scatterstar? Yeah, I want to point that out. Scatterstar. Of course, you guys got to see it. We have Emotech the Stormlord, followed by the Silent King, Scorpek Lord, and then Technomancer, followed by some Flayed Ones, a unit of Ophidian Destroyers, Scorpek Lord, a Locust Destroyer Brick, a small 2 individual Locust Destroyers, 6-man unit of Wraiths, and then 3 Doomsday Arcs again. You're going to see the Silent King, you're going to see Flayed Ones, you're going to see Doomsday Arcs. That's constantly just kind of the thing we're seeing here. Yeah, Scatterstar really does great damage, and they also have some good defensive buffs. So let's take a look at Steven's notes for this one. He said he ended up going first on Scorched Earth, as in Steven went first, and it was layout 1. He said he has been prepping for this, detachment and pretty much this exact list, so he was feeling pretty good. He pretty much traded Grots for space early, and he was trying to, get in a position to have the Wraiths commit in a spot of the field that he wanted them to, and then put them in like a fantastic place so he can actually destroy them, but not really make them like in the way of the rest of his army. Turn 3 is when he called his WAAAGH. He ended up killing 2 Doomsday Arc, 6 Locust Destroyers, 3 Scorpeks, and 6 Wraiths with the Chromomancer on that one turn. In exchange, the Necron player really only killed the Grots and some other, damaged some other units. So he was left with like the Silent King and some Destroyers, Flayed Ones, this Emotech, the Stormlord. But he ended up, getting a Doomsday Arc to Steven's natural expansion, his safe expansion. And Ophidians got to his home objective. So it ended up flipping the points by, a big point swip there and causing him to kind of fall apart. And he ended up not really managing his time as well, which I can totally see. When you're running 20-man units of guys and you're meticulously moving them around the field in the way that Steven ends up showing us, and we go over in our How to Move Boymot videos, you can definitely end up kind of burning time on that. It's really tedious, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. That can definitely happen in a stressful game, but great job nonetheless. He said that it was disappointing that he ended up losing there, but nonetheless, he knows that there was a tough game and he just did the best he could, and that's a great way to approach it. So shout out to you, Mr. Steven. They're strong, they're tough, and like Brandon's saying right now in chat, Scatterstar really hurts. And right here, Brandon's been here the whole time. You find out that when an army can hit and wound on 2s and get rerolls of 1, it's kind of broken. Yeah, dude, it's really broken, as you said, really broken. So yeah, Brandon had to experience that as well. Nothing to be ashamed of. That just happens in the meta. If anything else, stop us from getting nerfed right away, because we're not abusing things because Necrons are keeping us from winning everything, even though we're beating up everybody else. I don't know. So 67 points there for Mr. Steven. Still respectable. Score. So then we move on to game 4. Game 4, it was Adeptus Custodes. So we have the dreaded triple blade champions, followed by triple wardens, two prosecutors, and then witch seekers, followed by 2 grav tanks, and then a rhino and Inquisitor Draxus, because she can lead this guardian squad that's here and make them good against Xenos as well. So in this matchup, for his notes, he did say that the game was extremely cagey, and he didn't really get the conclusion that he wanted, just because they were both kind of running out of time from playing too cagey. The fact that these blade champions can like pop advance and charge and kind of run you down, and then both of these guys are like, oh my gosh, like, when am I going to pop the Feel No Pain? When am I going to go and call my wall turn? What I will say here is Tankbusters feel good. That the fact that you can do a combined force assault here, and the snag is getting to that good strength threshold of 7 means, on the wall turn, you're doing significant damage, but you do know that they're Feel No Pain. So then they're playing KG back and forth, trying to like get hand in hand here, and who's going to really be able to go on their own terms. So he said that he played too far back, and he think because, like I said, the blade champions, and I don't blame you for that, dude, because in my personal experience, I underestimated, like taking them, oh, you're not going to make a 10-inch charge or whatever it was, and he totally made it with the blade champion, and it ended up ruining the game right away for me. So I get why you did it, and luckily he didn't take advantage like you said, but these are things that become problematic when you're playing against a bunch of like, we fight first and we can charge you across the battlefield. So I don't blame you for that. The multi-phase damage, as in you can do them on any activation. You can have to do damage on both shooting and fighting. Combined, what we call combined arms, is the way to go through Custodians. He felt like compared to other detachments, Taktiks Brigade really shined here, and he managed to eat 2 units full bricks of wardens when it was his go turn when he actually went. So that's pretty sick. And yeah, it seems like he did put one of this wagons full of snagas, and then the other one he would put on the table or on reserves. And remember, Steven, he's out for coaching, so he said you meet him as Papreen at Outlook.com, or he's in our Discord as well, so you can talk to him directly. He's all over the place, and he's good at explaining what the mindset was. But yeah, definitely having those snaggers in the wagon, he plays pretty safe with them, and he takes advantage of reserves in games as well. He's really good at doing that, so not surprised at all. What was I saying? Okay, so yeah, those were the end of his notes for that custodian game. So really, it was a time KG back and forth. Not the we all have those games where you're like, it's not my favorite performance, but hey man, it's a win to win. Great job. So then we move into his last but certainly not least of his games. His last game into Eldari. So we have Atark, Wayleaper, Avatar of Cain, Farseer, Fugan, Janzar, and then Cassandras. We have Guardian Defender Brick, two Falcons, Fire Dragon, Howling Banshee, Shining Spears, 2 minimum size unit of Shroud Runners, unit of Striking Scorpions, Swooping Hawks, and then 2 Warwalkers. So really we have like the perfect tools to just destroy these guys and run them down, and that's kind of what his notes represent as well. He said Eldar, nothing fancy, was just old school Eldar. This mission was Hammer and Anvil. Just a horrible matchup for my opponent. He had to leave his deployment to do anything, and the Storm Boys just ate his lunch when he did. Yeah, because Storm Boys can advance and charge at any time, and the fact that these guys are pretty soft and really rely on their mobility means that you can always start with Storm Boys. Hurts them greatly. When they do commit, they usually want to use stuff like War Walkers and the Avatar to hold you back, but Orks just eat that with Beast Bosses, especially with the 20-man unit of Snaggers. I mean, the Avatar has no chance of survival once you pop lethal, or if you just decide to go all in with your dev wounds and volume. So yeah, great job by Mr. Steven there. He ended up winning that game. 100-point win right there. So to end 4-1 at number 11, he had 74, 167, 60, and then 100. So one last look at his list. Waaaghtaktiks Brigade, double beast bosses, one with Mork's Cunning, Big Mech and Mega Armor, then Mech Captain for reroll to hit. We have 2 Big Mech with Shock Attack Guns, and then a War Boss, 2 20-man units of Snaggas, a 10-man unit of Storm Boys, and then a 5 unit of Storm Boys Flash Kits, 2 units of Gretchen, a 10-man unit of Knobs, and then 2 units of Tankbusters plus the wagon and the trucks. Last but not this last kind of notes and opinions was he feels like dropping the Knobs for more just what he called trash. Knobs don't really have their place right now in the meta because you're either extremely tough or like a lot of chaff. And then if you're somewhere in the middle, we have other tools now that can deal with it. What we're speaking of is mostly tank busters right now because you can reach out and deal with it. That weird like middle ground units, which feels good. But that means knobs don't really have their place and they're a little pricey for that. There's damage reduction. There's still stuff that has good armor saves against them and deals with their toughness is not good enough. So he feels like dropping them. He just wants more stuff. And he needed more action monkeys. And then he said 10-man units of Stormblades were awesome. Not sure if he thinks he's going to need more of those, but nonetheless, he wants just more stuff. In that case, I think 5-man units of Stormblades work or individual mechs work. Maybe even just trucks. Also, tank busters, guys. Tank busters work because giving them +1 hit in this detachment means they work against infantry. That's something that can't be understated. When you're looking at other detachments and using tank busters, even like Dread Mob, something has stealth and Dread, these guys are essentially like, oh, I don't really do anything anymore. Even if I'm hitting vehicles on 5, it's just not what it is in this detachment. So take advantage of that. I think in reality, Tank Buster is actually ahead of the line than Breaker Boys. And I think a lot of people are super excited about Breaker Boys just because it was a completely new data sheet line. But the more we see is that Tank Busters are really finding their groove, especially in this detachment. And I think they're optimized here. And I see something like Breaker Boys optimizing like Warhorde or whatever. And I really, really love the Big Mech and Mega armor. I can't underappreciate that enough. In this meta where people want to shoot at you and kind of stand in position, you can either use them to draw out units, you can use them to overwatch units, you can use them to chip something that's durable down from a variety of different matchups before you finish it off with like a beast boss or a Ghaz unit. They can combine arms better than most units in the in our entire codex because they can get up to a strength 7 with 40 punches, and then they're 40 shots of lethal sustain. And then if their punches could be in Gaz's aura and get lethals as well, and you can pop a C3 for sustain, and the Big Mech and Mega armor as a power claw, then you can also fall back and shoot and charge. So it becomes ridiculous. You having an invuln really does matter because you can get more mileage out of that unit, which is something orcs aren't really used to. And I really think you should take advantage of that. Let's keep in mind that battle wagons seem to still be finding their place in a world where people think they could bop battle wagons quite easily. So a lot of the time you're using it just because you're trying to hide 20 boys, though. It's not that you're relying on their durability. That's why you're using one and you're really just hiding up on the terrain. A battle wagon's still easier to kind of hide and set up evenly from line of sight and ain't firing lanes than just blob of boys, or especially if it has 2 leaders. So a lot of the time you're using a battle wagon just as a big staging bunker. So shout out to Stephen Paprine, and thank you for the notes. Whoa! For the Waaaghtaktiks Brigade. And then we move on to our last and certainly not least of our lists. We have the Get Jack Sayer from the Saffron Slam 5. So our Get here went 4-1 as well. And it was an unusual, Warhorde list. And to the degree that it had Zagra, and we finally see some Breaker Boys. This is where I really want to see them. And he has some other fun units on here. So let's take a look at his list real quick. We have a Gazgultraka War Boss with Follow Me Lads. Zagra Wartsnaga, 4 trucks. We have 2 unit of Breaker Boys. And then, which I think, let's just be honest right here, while we're at the Breaker Boys speak conversation here, now that we've had some time with them, this is the detachment, in my opinion, for Breaker Boys. This one, right? You can run them in other ones, but this is the detachment for Breaker Boys. Their 2 attacks is just pretty rough in any other detachment. Dread Mob allows you to at least get great AP, but there's still armies that just have 4 up invulns. You still want the volume. Volume is always the answer for orcs. So Warhorde gives you that. These guys are glass cannons, in my opinion. Therefore, fighting on death matters. If you're going on your WAAGH turn, 1 Breaker Boy unit, you activate first, the second one gets killed in an interrupt, which is counteroffensive, and then you fight on death. So that's where the value is I'm speaking of here. Surprising they only had 1 War Boss, though, unit. Then he had a Burner Boy unit. The Spanner had a custom Mega Blasta. 5-man units of flash kits. Love to see that. My boys running SWAT teams up in here. We have the big 22 model brick of Gretchen for Zagra Wartsnag, again making an appearance. Love Zagra. Check him out in our playlist. He's fantastic. 2 10-man minimum size unit of Gretchen, followed by 3 Mega Knobs. You have the combi weapons and the power claws. Not my favorite profile, but it is definitely good. What I want to say here is he paid for the 3rd Mega Knob. It's not a wrong choice. Not even a bad choice. You can get more mileage out of Ghaz if you do that sometimes. So, and it also makes it easier, like harder for the opponent to really gauge how much they need to invest to get to Makari and to separate Ghaz from him. So I think it's totally fine if you do it. You have knobs with power claws again making another appearance, and then you have a shock jump dragstas. A lot of the time we see this in our Discord. It's so funny. Shout out to our Discord for there, is that people bring up the shock jumps, and some people are immediately like, no, they suck, and then other people are like, no, just try them, bro. And I've tried them, because a lot of the time I'll try anything that I'm either going to cover, or really just anything on our codex, because I have to get at least a first-hand account of an opinion. I can't just hate on what I see on paper, right? And shock jumps, I took an RTT on that RTT on one, and they were good. It worked if you understand that it can just get where it needs to go wherever it wants, and don't rely on any kind of damage for it. You got to be willing to lose it, but it's totally playable. So if you got one, throw up on your list, have fun, especially if you're just playing, Garage Hammer or RTTs. And then he has 3 units of Storm Boys on this list of 5 man. So he was going 5, 5, 5, 5. I really, really like that. And he still had my boy Gazgul, which is fantastic. So let's take a look. He got 3rd, and I will say yes. I understand he lost his first game, and people would be upset and be like, "Wait a second, is that considered submarining?" Blah blah blah. Well, you know what? I was thinking that, but guess who he, ended up having to fight game 1, right? Guess who he had to deal with? He was dealing with our boys, the Space Marine, Ultramarines, Vanguard, Spearhead. The reason why I took exception with this is because you probably don't know what this list does, really, off the top of your head. You're coming into the event cold, you're ready to go, and you're like, oh, Vanguard. Oh, I think you guys come on and off the table and shoot the crap out of me. Is that correct? And it's true. So we have Manius Calgar with this Ultramarine Vanguard Spearhead, and then Euro Ventress. We have Intercessor Squad, another Intercessor Skull Squad, 2 5-man units of Assault Intercessors with jump packs, a Centurion Devastator Squad with the twin las cannons as their options, Company of Heroes, which usually I think goes with the Euro Ventress. And then we have an Inceptor, 2 Inceptor squads. One of them is with the Plasma, and then the other one's with the Bolters. They're the big 6-man units. They guys can only drop in 6, but it still matters. And then we have a 3-man unit of Inceptor squads, Infiltrators, an Invader ATV, Reavers. Reavers are just funny boys. They have an aura. They can reduce your your OC, and they can make you take battle shock tests. So be on the lookout for Reavers. They can end up being really annoying for us that like to flip primary, with Storm Boys or with Bricks of Boys, and then a Scout Squad. So a lot of the time, not knowing what your opponents can do can really be detrimental. This does have reactive moves, and so if you're not playing on a mission that you can like take up table space right away to block off their firing lanes, and they get the initiative of you and they blow you up, that would really suck. I would think that something like a shock jump dragsta could help in this if you can just get to places you think the Vanguard is going to get first and use your Storm Boys there. But nonetheless, it's a tricky, and anybody that's running this in an effective way, which the Space Marine player was, for the most part, it can end up catching you off guard and you just end up losing. So if you a lot of the time, knowing is half the battle, as they say, right? So we move on to his second matchup, which is all uphill from here. So we had Grey Knights. It looks like the new Grey Knights. So we had Brotherhood, Tech Marine, Castle and Crow, Drago. Drago gives them like +3 inches to their charge maneuver. And then Castle and Crow, I don't know why I had a brain fart what he does. Hope chat tell me, or I'll just remember in a little bit, hopefully. We have a 5-man unit of Terminators, followed by a Strike Squad, 2 units of Inceptors, and then we have 3 baby carriers with those Red Knights, followed by a Purifier Squad as a big Purifier Squad. I believe this is where that Castle and Crow goes, right? And then he gives them +1 to hit. I think so, something like that. And then we have a Purifier Squad, 2 of those 5-man units of Purifier Squads. I think if you're not playing like the typical Grey Knight, where they like the initial detachment from Index, where they get like a reactive running away and picking themselves up with Mr. Deimos and such like that, they can't really time us to keep the distance as much, and our change of the wall really impacts that. Breaker Boys are just picking up their baby carriers. They still have to like try to pop the trucks to even get to anything good. In this case, knobs can come through because those guys are only toughness 8 or 9, I believe. Either way, +1 to strength, getting to 10 on the wall will make the difference nonetheless, because I know they're no more than toughness 10. So love this. 5-man units, Storm Boys, run down Purifiers, take up space. Ghaz Thraka, getting in their face matters a lot. A lot of the time they have to send Drago or, you know, the Paladin baby, sorry, not the Paladins, the baby carriers in there, and then that's when you really start to flip the game. So shout out to him. Then we go on to the third game. We have Space Marines, Iron Storm Spearhead. So, you know, they still got good shots. Yeah, Brandon. Yeah, Aaron, I mean, they have shock jump drags till you get so they have Burner Boys on this list. So I know you'd like that list. Then we have a Tech Marine, followed by an Assault Intercessor Squad, a Heavy Intercessor Squad, 3 Ballistic Dreadnoughts. These guys are so cheap for their points. I think they really shine in like basic vanilla Marines, because if they were, I would say Gladius, Allen Storm, they're going to do really well too, because they have strength 5 for their frags, and then their last cannons, they get re-roll hits when something's full health. Then there's 2 up armor save, so quite effective for Marines. 2 units of Brutalis Dreads, followed by 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. It's kind of funny because the Redemptor Dreadnoughts like the same cost as a Telemon Dreadnought. Just about, I think it's like 5-point difference as a Telemon Dreadnought from Custodians. It's like, I guess, okay, okay, whatever. And then 2 units of Scout Marines, followed by 2 Arbinger Warglaves. So you can see he brought big beefy stuff. I'm telling you now, and we were talking about this in the prediction videos before, and when I was breaking down the data slates and what I was thinking about, I was saying stuff's going to get thick, stuff's going to get heavy, tough, and you're going to have to expect to break people apart with either Ghaz or Snaggas or Tank Busters or Breaker Boys. So it was a great time for GW bringing these units, these data sheets in for us, and it's making a difference for all these lists. They have either Busters or we see Breaker Boys here. Not that you have to have them. Trust me, you don't have to have them as success, but they play into what the meta is right now. So he ended up getting a 97-point win there. Great job by our Git here. And then we move on to his 4th game, which was, again, Death Company, but this is the Plague Company. We have a Biologist Putrefier, a Terminator in Sorcerer Armor, followed by a Foul Blight Spawn, Lord of Contagion, Imotarion, and then Typhus. So, again, heavy on characters on Death Guard. You got to expect that. 1 Brick of Plague Marines, followed by a Rhino, followed by 2 10-man units of Cultists. They try to get bodies back by bringing a lot of Cultists. 1 3-man unit of Death Shroud, followed by a 6-man unit of Death Shroud. 3 Plague Burst Crawlers. So they said, we're going to keep the firepower. Target prioritization for their indirect matters a lot. If you don't have like a redundant Storm Boys or Boys for Sticky or Grats and stuff, they choose like your 1 unit of Storm Boys and they just pick them up. That could actually impact your game. In this case, he had 3 units of Storm Boys, so he wouldn't be able to do that so easily. And he had Burner Boys and little trash like that. And then he had a big unit of Pox Walkers, which, you know, is cool to see. Like I said, they would go with Typhus. So nonetheless, us having access to damage 3 now means that we have a chance to go into these Terminators or Mortarion and start to actually delete them. You will have to expect, if they have like a Sorcerer right here, they can actually reduce damage. So your flat damage 3 doesn't just straight out clean out a Death Shroud Terminator, but a lot of the time you might have to actually ignore Morty and just kill everything else. So between the War Boss's Power Claw attacks and the volume, if you pop critical 5+s or if you have lethal, there's a good chance you can just volume out and chew right through those Death Shroud, even if they reduce damage. If not, you can see how many units my Git has on here. 4 trucks, 3 5-man Flash Kits, Burner Boys, and then 3 5-man Storm Boy units. He's playing the primary, he's playing the secondary, he's killing all of the Death Guard scoring units, and then he's just making Death Guard kill him with not enough activations that they have and volume of attacks. And you don't really have to invest into killing into Morty. Only if like things are really in position that you can just put everything into him and dumpster him. Other than that, you have to just, you know, play the mission, boys. Play the mission. Trust me, play the mission. Never forget, as an Orc player, train body for points all day. So 95-point win there. Great job by you, Jack. And then we move on to his last game. He has the Chaos Demons, and yes, we have Slanesh, so you have to expect to see these gets on the table. You know, they're a little cheeky. So we have 2 Keepers of Secrets and Shalexi Hellbrain, followed by a Misk of Slanesh, whatever. Demonettes, Plague Bears, Beast and Nurgle, 3 units of Fiends. We have 2 3-mans and then the 6-man. 2 Chariots and then Seekers. So this is right on the line of being like where it wants to be most effective. These plague bearers and stuff being thrown in here, you know, in a reality, you do actually want it to be mono, and that's because they have a strat where they can actually do the old Iron Hands thing, where they can actually shed wounds from their big monsters onto nearby units. So you would use your demonettes, you'd attach characters to them so they have more wounds, and you can bleed the damage. You know, into those guys. So you can do like 18 wounds into those dudes, and then you can give them access to like a 4-up feel no pain for some one time, you know, not one time, I guess, because it's a 1 CP whatever phase, but you're doing it for one model to try to keep that alive, and that's a controlled rate of attrition. It's not necessarily as annoying as like a whole gun line that can't die, but it's very, very annoying. He doesn't have the max amount of fiends either. These chariots are like T6 with 7 wounds and a 4-up in one, I believe. So these guys are like orc trucks would act as maneuver, where they run around the field, get in the way, are harder to kill than you would expect, but they're mounted also, so they're not even vehicles. So in this, if he can fully invest in Slaanesh, Slaanesh can be quite terrifying. So yeah, so some places are ruling that big demons get to roll feel no pains before passing the wounds. So there you go. So this is always something that gets annoying when they break into the game when you can pass off wounds. What I will say is at least it's in melee and not shooting, like as an army that wants to do that. So you can still play the rest of the game and such. And nonetheless, our boy pulled it through and beat the crap out of this list. Getting an 83-point win there. The fact that Orks can kind of just do a volume of damage and kill everything else on the table means even if he wants to do that, you're like, oh, you're going to pass the wounds? I'll just punch through all those dudes too, and then, you know, I'll punch you if you're still left over. Either way, I killed all your scoring units, and I'm still winning on primary and scoring, so let your big demon at the end fight me and run around. But fighting on death matters a lot. Warhorde is fantastic when you have like another melee matchup, in my opinion, in that sense. And then Taktiks is really good because you can shoot. But in this case, you're fighting on death, and you're also fast to get the initiative. Keep in mind that he has Zagra. So Zagra actually into like demonettes is kind of scary. If you get the wall going, all those grouts are getting the strength 4, and then you get +1 to hit, +1 to wound from Zod, and then you're putting just a bunch of wounds onto like demonettes, or you're putting your pistol shots and picking up chariots. So it's valuable to take advantage of something like Zod, but also you're like acting as a safety net, and they have to charge into you because they don't have shooting. So you get to reactive and charge in response into them. So fantastic, love it, and great job, my Mr. Jack, going 4-1, getting 3rd place. I know you lost the first one, but hey, you know, sometimes you can get caught off guard by something cunning and sneaky like them Vanguard Space Marines. So let's go over this list one more time for the diversity of the wall. We have Jack Sayer with his Ghaz War Boss to follow me, La Zagra, Wartsnaga, 4 trucks, 2 Breaker Boy units, 1 Burner Boy unit, 3 5-man units of Flash Kits, 2 minimum size units of Gretchen, 1 maximum size unit of Gretchen, 3 Mega Knobs, 1 big brick of Power Clawed Knobs, Shock Jump Dragsta, and then 3 5-man units of Storm Boys. So many model units on this list. Good activations, good board presence. I really like the creativity behind this and the fact that he can score, but he can also crump. So shout out to the Great WAAAGH for some gets that I get to personally interact with in chat for doing so well this weekend. I think Orks are in a great spot. We'll be covering Waaaghtaktiks Brigade and some videos already done on them. So if you want my thoughts and analysis on what I think, you can go check that out before I do my video again. Of course, this Friday. And of course, check out the Facebook group, check out the Discord group. Let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, there was always one thing to keep in mind. Is don't cross our wall, because we not get T-foul. Whoa!